This is a Step Beyond the Fire podcast. My name is Cully. I'm a land manager and a wildlife biologist here in my home state of Florida. I invite you to join me on a journey as I seek to document the little-known stories told by those who use fire for the benefit of the land, also known as prescribed fire. So come on, let's head into the field and meet the people where the flame ends and new life begins. Welcome back to another episode of A Step Beyond the Fire. This is your host, Cully Lord. Our guest of honor this morning is Zach Prusak. He's been involved with prescribed fire and managing fire programs for the last 35 years. He specializes in starting collaborative fire projects in a variety of landscapes. Zach's current work focuses on creating and developing hybrid fire training courses, which, as a result, has greatly expanded the availability of fire courses to many people. Zach is a well-known figure in our line of work.
Well-known figure. I think that all that means is if you live long enough, people remember your name. But I appreciate it, Cully. I really do. Thanks.
Welcome to the show. I'm excited to be here with you.
Thanks for having me on.
So we are here at Split Rock Conservation Area in the city of Gainesville. We got a chance to connect this morning and take a little hike through this old growth floodplain forest. And there's a little bit of uplands out here too. So we're going to see some neat geological formations and a lot of big trees. Cool. A lot of big trees when we get in here.
Yeah, I didn't even know this was here. So thanks for taking me out here. And, you know, places like this, little hidden gems within cities are critical because people in their hustle and bustle don't get a chance to go into nature. They think it's far away. But if it's right around their backyard, which we're looking at their houses, this is great. And so definitely appreciate the city for maintaining this and keeping it in good condition.
Well, and there's a good connectivity component too. We've been talking about that a lot on the podcast. Everything from wildlife crossings to maintaining green spaces and all kinds of good stuff. But this is just a really good example of a good commitment in conservation for a local municipality. So I try to preach that a little bit when I can.
Yeah, I mean, Florida, we've got, 21, 22 million people. There's probably 9 million acres of public land. And I'd say that, there's half that's federal, half state with all the agencies. But cities and counties play a huge role in just exactly what you said. You can't, the state can't buy everything, nor should they. But connectivity, working with federal, like Ocala National Forest is around the corner, and then you got state parks, and then you got the city. So all of this works together because the animals and plants don't care, what patch you're wearing. But if there's a connection between them all, that's key. And, fire management is the same thing. All of us are connected as well. Here in Central Florida, here near Gainesville, Alachua Conservation Trust, Florida Park Service, the city, the county, it's incredible. University of Florida, all these folks working together. And so you've got this amazing connection of landscapes and the connection of people that work on them.
Definitely. Yeah. There's a lot of great work that's been happening here of recent too. So I want to get into a little bit of the experiences that you've had coming into conservation work from the beginning, but I thought there was a funny question that I came across I wanted to ask you.
All right, I'm ready.
How would your parents describe what you do?
Well, that's an interesting question. My mother, she passed a few years ago. My father, he's still alive and kicking down in Miami, but I remember that from the very beginning when I was a kid, I was always into biology. I would pick up ants, I'd bring bugs home, and they were all very supportive of that. They kind of thought I was maybe a little bit crazy. So when I got my biology degree out of UCF and started working for the Florida Park Service as a biologist, they kind of figured, yep, that's Zach. He's still doing his bug stuff, and he's getting paid. That's great. But then when I got into fire, they just didn't quite know what to make of it. And it was an interesting...
Parents tend to worry about those kinds of things.
Well, and it was an interesting insight into what the general public often thinks of as fire, So when I told them, I'm on these prescribed fires, controlled burns, like, prescribed fire, is that like wildfire, or, are you in any danger? And my dad still jokes to this day that, oh yeah, my son, he's the arsonist. Like, ha, ha, ha. And, a lot of our fellow fire folks, that's exactly what, sort of the default explanation is. Oh,
Right.
you're just burning the woods. And I was like, well, yes, but.
Lighting the woods on fire
Lighting
for
the
a
woods
living.
on fire, yeah. But I think it, to me, again, has given me an insight into what the public thinks of as fire. So utilizing my father and my mother at the time when she was alive as a sounding board for how I can explain what that is. Because so often all of us get into an echo chamber of each other. You and I can stand here in this beautiful woods, we can look around and we can know, oh yeah, that place hasn't had fire in a while, this needs fire. And to most people walking here, they won't know that. And so those are the people we need to reach, because all of us in our fire world understand and support it. But who we need to reach are the general public, who ultimately, with the power of the vote, can support or block the laws and statutes that support prescribed fire.
Definitely. Yeah, it's pretty funny the way my father describes, or he used to describe what I do. He said, my son Cully's in charge of every pine cone in the state of Florida. I was like, well, wow. Dad, it's not quite that simple, but that's the best explanation he could come up with on the spot.
You've got a really busy job. There's a lot of pine cones out there.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, it's funny because you try to, let's go down this little trail. Sure. There's a really neat.
Very cool.
This is where the actual split rock is. That's where this area got its name from.
So folks, we are walking through what I would describe as really amazing hammock now. So to transition from a little bit of upland, now we're going just, in Florida, we always joke that, yes, we have elevation. So we just went down about 4 feet and the habitats have changed.
Don't spill that Starbucks coffee you're carrying.
No. Wow, gratuitous plug right there.
Yeah, we are not being sponsored by Starbucks.
No, we're not being sponsored by Starbucks.
Too bad. Maybe one day though. That'd be that would be a nice sponsorship. So we've got a beautiful sink that's here, and this used to be a spring a long time ago, and the story goes that there were some settlers that lived in this area here, and they lived along the edge of this beautiful spring here, what used to be a spring. And when Interstate 75 was being built, they were dynamiting the road about a half a mile from here. And one day when the dynamiting was going off, the spring started to drain, and it drained completely dry. And the people left. So kind of a sad story, but
yeah, never been down here.
This is almost like a cave system that goes straight into the aquifer from here.
Well, in this, in the world of conservation and connectivity that you mentioned earlier, what we all know in the Southeast is that the two things that really influence conservation in natural systems is water and fire. How much and
Very
when.
Much so.
Yeah, and you can tell, right here where we're standing is a good example of when you alter water flow, then you alter the habitat. And same thing, when you alter the flow of fire across a landscape, you alter the habitat. You change what you see. So yeah, this is pretty wild.
I'm glad that you have decided to come on the show today, because you have really become a great spokesperson for conservation work, not only in Florida, but around the country. What led you into this type of work?
Yeah,
loaded question there.
So I've been doing this for 35 years, fire. I, again, like I mentioned, studied ants at the University of Central Florida. I have a master's degree in biology. And at that time, my only exposure to fire was what I read or was taught in our ecology class. I think Dr. Jack Stout, way back when, about 15, 20 minutes of discussion of the sections in the Myers and Ewell ecosystems of Florida. Hey, this is fire, it's important. Like, oh, okay, cool. But that's about it. And then what I thought I was going to do was continue on to work in entomology and be, sort of the next D.O. Wilson and do all that stuff. But then my first job, district biologist at Wekiwa Springs State Park. And I heard on your other podcasts, other folks get started, and the state park, you and Tracy. It's a great place to start, by the way. But I was running Sherman traps. I was doing basic things a biologist does. And my supervisor at the time, and I know you all mentioned mentors, mentorship is so critical. Walt Thompson was my supervisor. I worked with Rosie Mulholland as well. Both of them
She'd be another great one to have on the show one day.
She has lots of stories. And so I just was doing biology stuff, and Walt said, "Hey, do you want to get on a fire?" It's like, what does that mean, get on a fire? Sure. And that day sticks out in my mind because the first fire, that was Lower Wekiva River Preserve, just north of Wekiva. And I was blown away by, look at this. The stuff that I read in the ecology books, I could see it. We're actually applying this natural process to the land. And quickly after, there's going to be regrowth. And because we went back and we did post-burn surveys, and I was blown away by the fact that we were basically putting this great natural process back on the land. You know, it is what was shaped the landscape. We're doing it. And so from then on, my career took a right-hand turn. But that fire, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Speaking of training, I was handed a drip torch and go have fun, which I now know is not the best way to do that. And so as a result, I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
I left the windows down in this old pickup truck, and embers came through the window and actually lit the burn plan on fire. It was
the plan itself.
It was on this metal clipboard, and it was just chaos.
Whoops.
I thought at the time, but I dug it because it was all adrenaline and it was so cool. But then that started my exploration of, this could be a career. Wait, there's a plan. Oh, wait, there's a process behind it. It isn't just, as my father still jokes, it isn't just quote unquote arson. There's an actual plan and a process and training and people doing this as a team. So I was hooked. And so from then, that's where I am today. But I tell a lot of students that I work with in colleges, I say, your career is not a straight line. You will take so many different, off ramps, and that's cool. That's okay. And I now encourage people to do that. But what I was taught back then, nope, here's what you study, here's what you'll be, here's your gold watch, and you're dead. It doesn't happen that way. No. So I am grateful for that one question that I was asked, do you want to get on a fire? And here I am.
Wow. Yeah, it's a pivotal moment. You want to take get back to the main trail here. We're going to come back off of this slope and get back on the main trail.
But and just to reference your other guests, Tracy and Barry Collette, Tracy Sleek at Ordway and Barry, oh my gosh, these, both those folks are amazing. And they did talk about the influence that mentors had on them, that people that saw that they had an interest and encouraged them and helped them along is key. And it's a challenge. That's one of the things that we really need more folks to do is to actually act as a mentor. And I think, Cully, you mentioned that as well, that you have served as a mentor. And I think all the people that are mentors, they say the same thing. They're very humble. Oh, I don't know everything. I'm not a mentor, but that's the very key right there is humility. And
very true. Yeah.
Yep. And just sort of recognizing an interest in someone.
Well, and I think a lot of this goes back to most of the folks that do this, and I haven't been doing this, as long as a lot of people, but I think all of us enjoy giving back is what it really boils down to. Giving back and understanding that getting the next generation of people, in conservation work kind of up to speed on a lot of these complexities. And I don't like to refer to myself as an expert.
Oh, no. As a matter of fact, I bristle at that term. I did a piece for the Weather Channel once years ago, and I was introduced, as this fire expert. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not. No. But what you just said is right on. I think paying it forward is huge. Because, again, that's what it was done to me.
Very true, yeah.
People took an interest in what I did. They paid it forward to me. And so what actually drives me now, because I just hit 60 in January. My fire career, I don't know how many more years I have, but what's driving me is to pay it forward for all of the next generation to be sort of like a, for lack of a better term, a fire matchmaker. You know, what do you need? You know, what can I mean, I don't know everything. Good grief. I am a mile wide and an inch deep, but I know people that could help you in what you're looking for.
That's
and
great,
so that's kind of where I am now, is utilizing the platform and for, you know, the good and bad of the internet and the good and bad of how connected we are. The good thing is, all right, you have a question or a class you need or something, we got you, and I can find that person for you. So that's, yes, paying it forward.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So what's one thing in your success that you've had in fire over the years? What is one thing that fire has taught you that you did not expect?
I think, and that's a great question. I think that the main surprise to me over all these years is how similar all of us as fire practitioners are, how fire is a unifying process, a unifying art and skill. Because, you know, and I've heard it on some of your podcasts and other people, there's this sort of divide between firefighter and, you know, and firelighter. And yes, there are separate skills.
That's you should coin that phrase,
firelighter
and firelighter.
Well, that's a whole other side conversation where
little rhyme.
Where ironically, us in the prescribed fire business were kind of like jealous of all the great terms, firefighter, you know, hot shot, smoke jumper.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
There's no, well, which goes back to the other question is, you know, what do your parents think you do? There's no great term for that. I'm a prescribed burner. What does that mean? I'm a fire.
Warrants explanation every time you bring it up at a dinner party somewhere. And
I'm a fire shepherd. I don't know. But what I've been surprised at is over these years is how similar this world of fire is. And so it goes back to this idea that, you know, way back in our evolutionary time, all of us, you know, lived with fire at a certain time. We, as a species, grew up around fire. We understood what it did and still does. But when I, in my first few years as a fire practitioner, I was, this is firefighting and this is fire lighting, and they're different. They're really not, to some degree. There are skills in suppression and skills in ignition, planned ignition. But the middle, that Venn diagram, is there's so many skills that are comparable. And that is what's interesting to me, is that bringing people together from different skill sets really benefits the entire fire community.
Yeah.
And I, you know, because I was taught, no, that's one side, the other side. And that's just not true.
Sure. Yeah. So in all of that type of work, what was, in your mind, what's the biggest challenge that you're facing in your work at this stage in life? How are you tackling that?
So I'd say
you have before you start, you have a mosquito on that side.
What? We're in the woods and I have a mosquito?
It's still there.
No worries.
There it goes.
No worries. I welcome all the insects. I'm a bug person.
It was right next to I was maintaining eye contact, and it was looking at me too while you.
Well, it's a little known. One of my side gigs, also, I feed mosquitoes, and so apparently I have really good blood. All right, who's to say? But I think my biggest challenge right now, truthfully, is meeting the demand of this new world of hybrid training. And so when I say hybrid training would be loosely defined as you would be taking some course material online, but with other students in what we call a synchronous method, where people would be working close together at the same time, or asynchronous, where you're doing assignments at different times, but you may be replying to each other. So, and then you put it all together in a field day, because as was mentioned, I think by Tracy in your other podcast, you got to do this stuff in the field. Classes are just classes, but where it really comes together is right here where we're standing. What having said that, the demand for these courses are through the roof. I have a hard time keeping up. In 2022, last year, I was training, or a part of a training in this method, of easily 700 plus students. It's crazy.
I've sent maybe 4 people to those hybrid style courses for basic S1 3190, all that good stuff, and I've gotten very positive feedback from it.
we've learned now because, and this is just sort of an evolution of how we study how adults learn. And I think there's this fine line between what we would call training and then learning. So we've taken the same material, that's 130, 190, L180 that Barry had mentioned on your earlier podcast, the basic Wildland Fire suite, converted it to a really good online format. And so it's not just simply sitting there on your butt for 8 hours watching videos. You're working with other students and you're thinking and you're writing. Then when you come to the field day or any live fire, you have that in your back pocket. And a good mentor, good people on the ground will then help you put that together. That's the best way. In person, when I used to teach this in Gainesville with University of Florida, which I still do, Natural Areas Training Academy, big plug for them. We did this in person. So 4 days you were in the Florida State Collection of Arthropods, that center on your butt, and that's how you, and so, it's better in person. I think there's some things good in person, but that format allows us to reach a much broader audience. So that's my long answer to your question.
Sure.
My biggest challenge is getting enough help so I can meet that demand. Because it's so far, and it's just, I work with a lot of other fantastic collaborators in this world. Heather Heward, University of Idaho, Jen Fawcett, North Carolina, NC State. There's a lot of people that do this and do it very well. Dr. Ray Crandall, University of Florida.
Yeah.
We're all in this business because, we want to pay it forward. So meeting that challenge of just addressing the need that's a huge challenge.
Bringing it full circle, it now reminds me back in 2008 when I did my basic S130, 190, and that's 15 years ago by now. It's hard to believe.
See how time flies?
But you were there. You were one of the, I believe you were one of the course instructors there. That just jogged my memory. So you've been doing this a really long time, and this is, it's really great to hear your perspective on these things and how you're evolving with the times and with to meet the demand, because I don't know, it'd be pretty tough to meet that demand in person.
It would be tough to do. And nothing is ever perfect. I mean, I was a part of fantastic in-person trainings. Those trainings will never go away because we also have to understand that people learn in different ways. There's the factor of just simply, being in front of a computer. We're all there maybe too much anyway. But I think those in-person trainings, they're here to stay. But if we can sort of meet the demand through this hybrid format, and it isn't just simply 130, 190, it's pretty much any fire class you can think of. There's the whole federal suite, smoke, RX 410, or the prescribed fire planning and implementation 301, 341. Those are the federal courses. Matter of fact, this week I am teaching that.
Which one?
301, 341. It's the fire planning implementation. There's elements
that here in Gainesville?
No, that is being taught online. And that class has elements that could be actually introduced to private landowners. And so part of my work with Tall Timbers, and I'm so glad that in your previous podcast, you mentioned Comeric, one of the founders of Tall Timbers, and the connection, the through line with him and Jim Stevenson in the Park Service.
That's a neat story.
Yeah.
I love stories like that. Yeah.
It comes down to people. People are the through line to get to getting more fire on the ground, to outreach. And so my work with Tall Timbers through the private lands department, we want, Tall Timbers is a fantastic nonprofit, and I definitely recommend everyone listening to this to go to their website, where based on the success of fire science and research and getting private lands fire implemented, we have an opportunity to actually get more training and more learning into the minds of way more people than was ever thought of before. Because each state has their own certified prescribed burn manager program, which is fantastic. Florida's is great. Georgia, Alabama, many states have them. California now has one. However, what is missing is all of the other stuff that people keep asking me about. I have a big MailChimp list. I send out fire training and jobs. And when people see some of these federal fire courses, they say, oh, that's great. Can I do that? There's an interest in everyone to learn more. And sometimes those courses they fill up with federal people. So one of my goals is to make those courses or bits of them available to whoever wants it. Everyone, there's a benefit in everyone from private landowners all the way up to federal fire professionals to become much more, I don't know, just a common course curricula between everyone. And that is one of my goals as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So the S130, 190, the basic courses that we talked about in previous episodes, which you just mentioned, are sort of the gateway.
Yep.
To kind of get your foot in the door to understand the basics. So as you know, careers in fire, which is one of the things we were wanting to talk about today, is they can vary pretty widely.
Oh, yeah.
So what are some paths that people can take in this type of work? I mean, I know it's kind of a loaded question, but...
No, I get that question a lot. And I will tell you that there is no one great answer to that because... And I think, and I keep referencing your earlier ones, I think something Tracy said made sense. It was like she caught the fire bug. She got, excited about being on a fire through Andy, another amazing person, Andy Chrisman. Whatever your background is, so I used to work for the Nature Conservancy as the Florida fire manager, and some of the incredible burners I worked with, their backgrounds were so different. One was a nursing major, one raised bees, and his family, it's Steve Morrison, his family was a long-term conservation, powers in Central Florida. But everyone's background's different, and how you get into this job is as varied as your own interests. But I will say that it isn't just because people see videos of firefighters out west, digging line and you're fighting fire. You see some video of prescribed fire and people are out doing this. But what I think people don't know is whatever your interest is, you can apply that to a fire career. Do you like mapping and GIS? Oh my gosh, there's a whole realm of needs for better fire mapping. Do you like fire effects? Do you like to study how one plant grows and another one doesn't? Oh my gosh, fire ecology, huge field. Do you like archaeology? Do you like studying the past, the historical use of fire? Okay, that's a great career as well. Do you like sociology? I had a student, I forget what college now, but she said she was a sociology major, but she was in the 130, 190 because she wanted to get a feel for fire. But what she was interested in is why does Smokey Bear's message resonate so well? What's the psychology, sociology behind that? And I went, that's fantastic because we need that.
We do, yeah.
So it isn't just fire. When you say fire career, and I've heard that too. It's those two questions. One is how do I get a job in this, and two, how do I get my red card? And that's the two questions I get. But I would say that follow what you are good at or what interests you. But definitely the 130, 190, L180. It is a skills suppression leaning course. But the elements of that apply directly to prescribed fire. So I would say if you take that class, you automatically are part of a much larger fire community, speaking the same language, and then go off on whatever interest you have. Do you like, if some people are good with money, with spreadsheets and grants, oh my gosh, we need that. So take that and maybe you say, being outside and digging lines, not for me, but I so am good at getting grants. Oh my gosh, please work for me. So it isn't just simply coming outside because yes, this right now where we're standing, this is amazing. I want to actually, Cully, ask you if you have a lighter. We can go ahead.
I know.
This is off the record, right?
It needs it bad. There's some pines in here, but the oaks,
Yeah, we could, this could use some fire.
It definitely does.
So it's really all of those. And there are many universities that do offer those courses to people to sort of specialize in. People study dendrochronology, the history of fire through studying tree rings, which is, wow, fantastic. So the sky's the limit really on what you can do to help us all become more, I guess, aware of fire's natural role. Oh, politics. If you like politics and, politics, it's around, you may have heard of it. So we need people that actually spend time doing fire to then draft and create laws and statutes that can actually speak to supporting the tool of fire. Because I know
Yeah,
some
that's
people that are
amazing.
fantastic politicians. They're great lobbyists, and they lobby for fire. But some of them I've met never have been on a fire, but they get it. But to me, there's something to, you really don't know it until you've done it.
That's very true. Yeah, I think it's I was reading a document the other day about the Fire Adapted Communities Learning Network,
Yep.
and they talk about one of the great tools of getting support for your program is actually getting the
Yep.
politicians out there to get some dust on their shoes and get a little bit of ash on their clothes and get them smelling smoke and really
Yes.
bring them into your world so they can really get a true understanding of what
When I
that's
was
like. So
working for Brevard County Environmentally Endangered Lands Program years ago, I learned the hard way that I needed to understand how local politics works. The county owned land in a city, I went out, planned it, did a fire. I got so much grief from the city because
yeah.
of all the reasons you could imagine. And I was
Hmm.
blown away by that and taken aback because I'm out here doing good. So
Yeah.
what I learned was, let me speak to the city council, let me go to the county commissioners, and we invited the county commissioners out on another fire.
Hmm.
Put them in yellow, gave them a drip torch, and they were, of course, just totally caught up with it. And yeah, um, it really is important to have a good understanding of your
Yeah.
own politics in the state and county and politicians. Yeah.
Definitely. Is there any other advice that you would like to give to someone who is considering starting a career in fire?
I'd say another great question. Some of the advice does go to pretty much any general job advice is go and volunteer, go and talk to people. I'll put a
Sure.
plug in for fire councils. There are 3 fire councils in
Yes.
Florida. Prescribed burn associations. You had Barry talking about that on your
Hmm.
earlier podcast. There's 113 prescribed burn associations, I think, around the nation. 35 fire councils around the nation. Go and get involved. A
Yeah.
fire council meeting, prescribed burn association meeting, is a great place to go meet people who would hire you and could give you advice. Nothing, you have to put yourself out there. Which of course is true
For
for
sure.
most any jobs. But the more people you meet, the
Hmm.
more opportunities you'll have to work for them. And then, but don't expect that you may be paid right off the bat. Volunteering is a great way to do it, which is another plug for 130-190.
Yeah.
That's become almost a common currency for getting on any fire is, you have this class? Okay,
Yep.
let's get you in there.
Definitely.
But and then I'll put a plug in. I've got a MailChimp job list and fire training list. If anyone listening to this wants to be put on that, contact Cully and I'll put
Yeah.
you on that list. It
There's
is
a lot
just,
of good stuff
uh,
comes through there.
yeah, I try not to overwhelm people with emails.
It seems exhausting because man, you're putting out stuff constantly on that. Yeah, that's probably a lot of hard work to keep up with all that because everybody around the nation is sending you job
Yeah.
opportunities and training opportunities, right?
What I
So
want to do, and I'll just also, to get back to the hybrid training part, uh, again, I love what Tracy said on your podcast, that she was inspired by her mentor who looked like her. I'm here talking to you about fire, and I'm
yeah.
this old white guy with a beard. Funny how many fire people have beards. And what my goal is to have in all of these trainings, these hybrid trainings, is a greater diversity of fire practitioners from agencies,
Yeah.
private lands, indigenous tribes. There are so many people using fire that I think, to your question about getting jobs, is that if you broaden the exposure to people that do fire and use fire, you yourself will be inspired to do that. And
Yeah.
it is true, we do respond well to people that we can connect with, and there's lots of
Hmm.
ways that happens. But yeah, the more you start looking, the more you'll find so many folks using fire. So
For sure.
yes, I can definitely put people on that list. One of my crazy things that might happen, I don't know, before I retire, I would love to create a fire app that would link people with, so say I'm brand new in fire, I've been to a university or anywhere, and I want to get a job or I want to meet people. Where do I go? Oh my God, the internet's filled with stuff. How about I go on this fire app and I can be linked to the training I need because it'll send it to you, like sort of like LinkedIn or Glassdoor. And then I'm linked to mentors, to people that are out there that if you just went there on a fire, they would take you on.
In.
Yeah.
Man,
and then they would mentor
cool.
you.
I like that idea.
Yeah. And then hook that up to a map app. So say you're driving through Florida, I'm on my vacation, and all of a sudden I see, hey, look, Disney Wilderness Preserve and the Nature Conservancy, they're burning this next week. And you know what? They're looking for volunteers. I happen to have what they need. I got time. Let me do a pyro tour, and I'm going to go there and help them.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Because right now, how that works is it's the same old thing. Call me, and I'll get you on a fire. And so I would love to develop something like that. So anyone listening out there has about 300 grand, let me know. We'll develop that app.
We will. Yeah, I love that idea. That's really cool. Yeah, a lot of great stuff to think about today. I appreciate you coming out here with us. And
oh man,
I wanted to just kind of like close things out and give you the opportunity. How can listeners support you in the work that you do?
So great question. Besides, of course, and I'll put in the plug for Tall Timbers, definitely listeners, go to the talltimbers.org website, learn about the incredible diversity of work that Tall Timbers does. Tall Timbers we're housing the Coalition of Prescribed Fire Councils, so a great network of all fire practitioners around the nation. We have the Prescribed Fire Training Center, a national fire training center. But at the heart of it all is the work that is done on private lands, the Red Hills region. There's so much to be learned from fire practitioners at that level. So I'd say that's one way, just go and learn about what we do. And truthfully, become an advocate for prescribed fire. Become an advocate for the safe use of fire wherever you may be. And it's different in different parts of the country. It's different in different parts of the world. But at the heart of it really is, I made the comment earlier that as a species, we all lived with fire. What I think how listeners could support is to go back to this mindset that we need to live with fire again and not think of it as this sort of adversary, which it's become. And that's a whole other podcast right there, how we've gotten to the point where we are, Canada and California and Florida in 98 that you mentioned earlier. A lot of that is our own doing, where, we've built in areas that historically have burned. You also mentioned 1910 and sort of what's happened since then. But I think the more people can go to a fire festival, the Fire Fest in Gainesville that we did was fantastic. Go out and see and talk to people and understand that, yes, still fire needs to be respected. It's a tool, but it's a tool that, professionals, utilize, but learn more about. That way, when you have an opportunity to vote or have an opportunity to support the tool of fire at the political level, you can.
Definitely. Yeah. Great information. A lot of great things to think about. Well, listeners, we're going to finish our hike this morning. Zach, it has been an absolute pleasure. We appreciate you taking the time to come spend some time with us. And
my pleasure, Kelly. Anytime I get a chance to walk out in the woods and not answer email is a gift. So thank you for having me out here.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks for taking us another step beyond the fire.